Hello, and welcome back to Pender's Garage. In this episode, we're going to be working on the 1969 Chevelle. This car, if you watched the video whenever I brought it back home, whenever I bought it, is really not too bad. But that being said, it's not without its flaws. So this episode is going to be dedicated to mostly just repairs to get this car up to par. So let's get into it. The very first main issue I'm going to try and knock out on this car is at higher speeds, it's got a bit of a pulsating vibration. And when I say higher speeds, I mean, it really doesn't do it until you get up to like 70 miles an hour. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this thing up in the air and give it a good once over and inspect the universal joints. I'm suspecting they might be the issue, but we'll see. I'll go ahead and get it up in the air and take a peek at those.
I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you guys. I already checked these off camera. And this one here has got just a teensy-weensy little bit of play in it. I'll probably go ahead and see about replacing it. And we've got little tiny bit of play here in the pinion, but I can just barely feel it being a little bit loose.
I'll probably go ahead and take the drive shaft out, feel how the pinion feels, see if it feels gritty or rough or anything like that. I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, but I'll go ahead and sort that out and kind of see what it needs. Let's show you guys too, though, real fast, the underside of this car. It's really not too bad. The body mounts are still there. They're not great, but they're still in okay shape. I'm going to leave them be. And I can tell by the little screws there that somebody has sort of quickly patched up a couple holes. Here's a little hole here that's been patched up, as you can see. I'm absolutely okay with that. It's the kind of car this is. Really not too bad, though. The frame is really pretty solid. Let me show over here, too. Yeah, it's got surface rust, and it looks bad, but it's nice and sturdy, though. Nothing really too bad. Got a brand new tank in it, so that's nice. Looks like the hoses have been changed too, the hose clamps, all that good stuff, sending unit. But yeah, the frame's nice and solid, and the body, the body's, well, the frame's solid. Am I gonna fix that? I do believe it's still safe. As long as you don't put any people in the trunk, I think you'll be fine. I don't plan on doing that, so.
A little bit of some transmission leaking out the speedometer drive there, but the output shaft seal's dry, and so is the pump seal and all that stuff. It's a little damp here around the gasket, but it's not too bad. And then I'm pleasantly surprised. This does have a later model small block 350 in it. As you can see, it is nice and dry up there by the rear main, and the oil pan is all nice and dry. We'll crawl under here, and you can see that the front seal is nice and dry. So we have a leak-free engine, which is awesome. Also we got a little tiny bit of some power steering seeping on these hoses. I monitored the power steering fluid level all the way home, and it never did really drop, so this is a pretty minor leak. I was pleasantly surprised. This car does have new ball joints, and stabilizer links have been replaced. The wheel cylinders have been replaced. It's got new shoes and all that good stuff. Alrighty then. I've got my drive shaft dropped down and got my my drums off so that I can see how much torque it takes to rotate this. The right way to do this is to have your carrier out and of course your axles and whatnot. And some of you may feel like this is deja vu because we literally just did this on the 81 Z28. So I've got my beam style torque wrench here. It's an inch-pound style. And I don't know if you can see on camera there, but it takes literally less than 1 inch-pound to rotate this pinion. So that tells me that our pinion bearings have got pretty much no preload on them at all, and that corroborates with the fact that I can slightly move the pinion in and out and side to side. Very, very little, unlike that Camaro, which was pretty extreme. So I'm hopeful this one here is still in pretty good shape. It feels very smooth, so that's got me very hopeful. It just has that tiny bit of play and pretty much no preload. So here we go again. With this one, the car has been upgraded to 373 gears. I don't believe those are factory on this car. The rear end looks like it's been in the car for a long, long time. So I'm assuming somebody actually did change the gear set, or maybe they just did a pinion seal and put it back together and didn't know how to tighten that nut correctly. So many people think that you just tighten that nut till it's tight, and that's just not how you do it.
So since this seems to be happening quite often, you really need to have a good understanding of what's going on here with these pinion bearings. You have a tapered roller. I don't have a race to show you guys, but if you had a race here, which follows the same taper, as you tighten that nut down on this, it draws it closer to your race, which on a pinion, you've got two. You got one here, one on the other side as well. So you're tightening both of them down together and setting the preload. And of course, you've got your crush sleeve that kind of goes in between and allows you to just tighten it to the right specification.
It is real easy to overdo it. As soon as you've taken up all the slack and you've started to crush that crush sleeve, once your pinion bearings start to touch their races, it takes very, very little tightening after that for it to get real, real tight. So as soon as the pinion bearings touch their races, you got to be real careful and give it just small, tiny increments of tightening. Check your torque to rotate and take your time with it, because if you get it too tight, you got to pull it back apart, change out your crush sleeve, and start all over. So don't do that. Do it right, take your time. Anyways, you kind of get the idea for what's going on. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten the pinion nut till I've got the right amount of preload on my pinion bearings. And we'll drive the car for a while and make sure it does okay. And I think it's gonna be just fine. It's pretty much the main issue I had with this car on the way home, drivability wise, is that it has no accelerator pump. And you can see it slowly pushes down on the lever, like really slowly. We're getting pretty much no accelerator pump. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the squirter off here and check the weighted check valve in there, see if it's stuck or something. Okay, it is working now. So what I ended up doing was I took the squirter off. It wasn't clogged up or nothing. It had the right kind of screw in there. And the needle, the weighted sort of check valve needle that's in there was free, wasn't gummed up or nothing. But I found while I had that off, I was able to sit here and kind of put a little bit more pressure on here and really actuate the lever on the accelerator pump, and it broke free. Something in there was stuck or gummed, and whatever it was able to get pushed out and is now free, and we now have an accelerator pump. And one trick for you guys too is to put some paper towels in here. Don't use toilet paper, but put these in here and it'll help prevent you from accidentally dropping the screw or something down into the barrel. It does have a butterfly down there, so it's not like it's gonna go into the intake or nothing like that, but that's a good little trick, and it will soak up some of the fuel that you lose by testing it and things like that, and you won't end up flooding the thing as badly. Now I'm going to move on to the horns real fast. The horns on this car do not work. Very first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my horns have got good power and ground. Pretty simple. Power comes in here. Ground is coming in from the radiator support here. So put my little lead here. I usually use a headlight bulb, but right now I've just got this little turn signal bulb I've got wired up to load test this. If you just put a multimeter on this, that really won't tell you the whole story. It'll tell you how many volts you've got, but voltage doesn't always carry any current. So I use a bulb. It's nice and simple and it works really well. If your bulb lights up nice and bright, well, that shows that the wiring can handle a good size load, at least enough load to
run the horns here. Now that I've got that all wired up, I can push the button and see if it lights it up. And it does. So that tells me I do have good power and ground going to this horn. I'll go ahead and check the other horn as well. That tells me I do need to just buy some new horns. You can try to adjust these. I'll try that real fast and just see what happens. So sometimes you can adjust this. Most of the time it doesn't do anything, but it's, you know, worth giving it a shot. If that doesn't do anything, then I'll just order a cheap set of horns for it. I've seen these for sale before at Harbor Freight and figured I'd give these guys a shot. These are going to be about the cheapest horns you're going to find. This will give you both your low tone and your high tone horn. The whole kit's $22. Really can't beat that. It's a pretty darn good deal. It even comes with a relay if you're doing this from scratch, you don't already have one. I'll go ahead and pop these guys in here. I did adjust on these, by the way, like I said I was going to, and adjusting had made no difference. I've gotten lucky before where you can adjust this dude, and sometimes that makes it come around, but most of the time not. One little difference between the old horns and these new ones is the new ones do have to have a ground wire, whereas the old ones were just grounded by the base. The way I'll do it is I'll just run a jumper ground from the base. That'll work just fine. See if I can just put these in the factory spot. Looks like I can. They're gonna fit just fine. That works out good. Now, I will just clean this up so I've got a good ground. Let me see if I can reuse my wire. I think I can. Yep, sure can. So I don't even have to wire that up. I just need to make a quick little jumper ground wire. That'd be good. Let me just clean this up a little bit. I like to always keep leftover wiring stuff. That way I don't have to buy wiring when I need wiring, especially just little sections of it. Some of you might remember this is the wiring that was from the anti-theft device I took off of the '96 Civic that I flipped. That was good. There we go. Looks good. Woo! Go ahead and slap the other one on there. And then we'll see what it sounds like with both of them. Here we go. That should be good. Let's see what it sounds like now. Oh yeah. That's loud. I'm happy with that. I know they're not the prettiest things in the world, but they do the job, and well, they probably look a lot better if you just painted them black and whatnot, but you really can't see them underneath. If you got way down there, then you can see them, but just looking at it straight ahead, you can't see the horns, which I'm happy about. So I'm always buying horns for stuff, and so I'll definitely be buying these in the future. For $22, you get both horns. You really can't beat that. It's a pretty good deal. While I've got this car up in the air, I decided I'm going to go ahead and repack the front wheel bearings. This is something that tends to get neglected on cars, and it's just a good thing to do. It's maintenance. Tapered roller wheel bearings tend to last a really long time, but you do have to maintain them. One thing you can do as well is kind of rock your wheel back and forth. If it's got play in it, then it's probably time to go ahead and pull it apart. Some people would just go ahead and tighten it back up, and you can do that too, but for me, that's a sign that it's time to go ahead and repack them. Now that I've got the front wheel bearings repacked, I did the other side too already. I went ahead and greased up all the grease points on this thing. On these older cars, you've got quite a bit more grease points than you do on your new stuff. This car has been pretty well taken care of by its previous owners. It looks like as things wore out, they actually took care of them and had them replaced. I noticed that the brakes have all been updated. It's got all new hardware. It's got new brake shoes. A couple of the ball joints have been replaced, and tie rods. Things were replaced as they went bad, and it's got all new brake hoses and things like that too. So this car has been pretty well taken care of throughout its life. So that's good. This rear U-joint here is right on the edge of just bad enough that I'd like to go ahead and replace it. It really could probably last a good little bit longer, but I'm afraid it's probably going to start squeaking on me in the near future. There's no grease fitting on this one, so I couldn't just pump grease into it. I could just put some new grease in here, but you know what? I already had the drive shaft out anyways, so I'll go ahead and replace this one. For now, I'll go ahead and clean this dude up. Start getting this old U-joint out. Now I'll get some pliers and get these clips out of here. I do like to put a little bit of some penetrating oil on there. It won't come out real easy with some pliers. A lot of times I'll just get a punch, hammer out, get it out that way. There we go. Alright, there's that one. Over. Do the same thing on this one. There you go. This is actually made for ball joints, but it'll work. Start pushing it out. And this is where I like to use some heat. Not because you got to, because it helps. And I'd like to think it helps prevent you bending these ears here on the drive shaft, which can happen. When you heat up the ears here, it causes them to expand a little bit, makes it so it's not quite so snug trying to drive these guys out. Oh, there you go. If there's enough room, I could just slide this one out. There it is. Now, what I'll do is take my time to really clean this dude up, make sure that the new one goes in real nice, and make sure my groove is nice and clean where the clip goes. This is a situation where getting some bore brushes can really be your friend. Okay. This is a U-joint that is not staggered in the sense that it's the same from here to here and from here to here, and the caps are the same size. So the only thing you can really get wrong with putting this in is putting the grease fitting in the right spot. A lot of times your aftermarket ones will have grease fittings, and some of them now have the grease fitting in the cap. And I kind of like that for ease of installation. You just can't really put it in wrong at that point. But these, you kind of have to get it in a spot where you'll still be able to get access to that grease fitting. So you got to kind of sit here and think about where you want to put it so that you can. I'd say it'd be better to point the grease fitting this direction, not this direction. In this case, I will take the caps off that go to the sides. That way they don't fall off and I'll lose all my rollers. I like to get these caps to where they fit snug, but not too snug. Now, a lot of times I will get myself a socket just a little bit smaller than this cap. In this case, an 11/16 fit pretty good. Here. to go ahead and use my socket. And while I'm doing this, I'm also holding my U-joint up with my pinky. Almost there. Now, I'll flip it back over, slip my other cap in. There we go. Just make sure it's going in nice and straight. Despite what it might look like, I'm not hitting that very hard. There we go. You can throw this back in the car now, and that is done. So, my low beam headlight is bad. I'm gonna snag me a new one. So 2 of the 3 screws that hold the headlight bulb in are stripped. Can't really get them out. Trying to think up a good plan here before I get too carried away. I don't really want to take the whole thing out, but I could just take the whole deal out of there. Could drill them out, I guess. Be real hard to get a drill bit in this one on top. Alright, so normally you don't gotta do this. I went ahead and just took the whole assembly off. Whoop, can you see that? Not really, but you can take my word for it. They're not really, not gonna come out, so I'll have to probably cut these out or drill them out. That way I can go ahead and take this bezel off here, because the bezel is what really holds the bulb in. Normally you'd leave this in the car. I'll clean up the threads on these screws. Means they're rounded pan head screws. I don't think I'll be able to grab onto them with a pair of vice grips. I guess I could try, but I don't think it's gonna work. What I'll do is I'll start on this side instead of trying to grab onto the head. No, that's not gonna work. I think I'll go ahead and just cut the heads off with the cut-off wheel. Man, it's really thin though. I don't want to damage the bezel. I wonder if I could just cut a nice slit down it. If that don't work, that gets me halfway to cutting the head off anyways. That's probably not going to work, but I better give it a shot. That sucker's in there good. Hey, it's working. Sweet. Let's see if that works on the other one too. That guy. Let's do the same thing on this one. This is what I'm doing. I'm cutting a slit. It'll focus on it. Boop. Right there. There you go. Cut a slit in these so I could use a screwdriver to get these out since they were stripped Phillips heads. Oh no! Well, that didn't work unfortunately. Cut too deep on that one. Well, I'll go ahead and just cut the head off the rest of the way. There we go. Boom. Now I just gotta get this, do this screw out of here. Now this one's got the little deal on it where I can tighten this up extra tight. There. Let's see if that's tight enough to break it loose. is. So now I'll just walk it back and forth. Okay. Boom. There we go. Alright, now that I got some screws, let me throw this thing back in. Okay. Very good. I do have a bit of a leak here from the transmission. I mean, different parts of it are a little bit damp, but it looks like the majority of the leak, I would say, is coming from the speedometer drive. I'll go ahead and take this cable out. And now I'll go ahead and take the little tab off. That's not the right one. Well, it's metric. What the heck? This must be a later model. Turbo 350, it's got a 10mm bolt in it. So, anyways, the speedometer drive bullet thing that they call it here appears to be the main source of our transmission fluid leak. I won't fix the other leaks probably. I'm just going to fix this main one because it's already left a couple drips on the concrete. Also, kind of trying to want to kill two birds with one stone here because I'd like to see what my speedometer drive gear colors are and count the teeth on them so that I can re-gear the speedometer drive, because the speedometer's off by a bunch. I mean, I think it's off by like 20, 25 miles an hour or something like that. Usually these things just pop right out. Oh, there we go. Let me see. Well, that seal there should be good then if it was that hard to pull it out. So we have a red driven gear. I'll count the teeth on it here in just a minute. That looks awfully purple to me. Could be wrong. So I'll start counting where that tab is right there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got a 10-tooth purple gear. Okay, so 10 teeth. Now I can do some math and determine exactly what gears I need to buy so that my speedometer is a little bit more accurate. I have got my driven gear out now with what this is called the bullet, and part of the reason why this is leaking is because, I don't know if you can see in there, but there is no seal of any kind really that seals up this here driven gear to this here bullet. And so slowly but surely fluid can leak out of this thing. That's just how they came from the factory. Now, that being said, you can get an aftermarket bullet that does have a seal in here. But as far as the speedometer gearing goes, there's a lot of equations you can use to find out what ratio you need so that your speedometer is accurate. But it is pretty simple in that there are quite a few different calculators you can use online now that are free, that you can punch in your data and find out exactly what you need. So, long story short, with my 28.5-inch tall tires, 373s, what I need is a 2.6 to 1 ratio. Well, right now with my 21 teeth and my 10 teeth, I've got a 2.1 to 1 ratio. So, to get my 2.6 to 1 ratio, if I just wanted to change the driven gear, which is this one, which is real easy to change, I would need to up that to a 26 tooth to get my 2.6 to 1 with a 10 tooth drive gear. But unfortunately, your driven gear and your drive gear have to be compatible with each other. There's two different sizes of drive gears. Now, I've got the bigger one, which is like 1.8 something inches, and then the smaller one is 1.7 something. I need to have a driven gear that's compatible with a bigger 10 tooth. Well, that doesn't exist. You can't really get a 26 tooth that's compatible with a bigger drive gear. So what I'll have to do to get my 2.6 to 1 is drop my teeth on my drive gear and go down to an 8 tooth with my existing 21 tooth driven gear. You take 21 divided by 8, and that will get me my 2.6 to 1. I was going to change my O-ring here on the bullet, but it is actually still reasonably snug. So I may, for now, just go ahead and run this. I am going to see if I can get a 8-tooth drive gear. Speaking of, I may have one. I do have some spare transmission parts and things laying around, so I'll go check real fast. So I would need an 8-tooth, which is a yellow gear. Got a few parts here. I got one box here. All right, we sure enough do have a yellow one. Let me double check and count the teeth. 8. Okay, so it is an 8-tooth. All right, sweet. So now I'll go ahead and take this into the other shop. By the way, this is out of a Saginaw 3-speed manual. Your turbo 350s have the 7/8 bullet and the same drive system, and so do the Saginaw 3 and 4 speeds and Muncie's. They all use the same drive gears and driven gears. Now to get these dudes off, there's just this clip right in here. All you gotta do, pull that clip out, and then this will slide off the shaft. I'll do the same thing on the transmission that's in the car. So this one's in pretty good shape still, so I'll use this one, and I'll use my 21 tooth driven gear, and I'm going to reuse this bullet and just really clean up the threads on here and really clean up the speedometer cable. If I can get it down to just a seep, I'll be happy with that, as long as it's not dripping. And it really wasn't terrible. It just had a couple drops on the ground after sitting for a couple days, which really isn't too bad, but you know, if I can get it to slow down a little bit, that'd be good. If I can't, then maybe I'll invest in one of the newer aftermarket ones that have a seal built in, but we'll see. We'll see how it does. I'll go ahead and show you guys real fast on the workbench here, but this one, it's going to be kind of hard to show you on the one under the car. To get this gear out, it's really pretty simple. All you have to do is take the bolts out for your tail shaft extension housing, slide it out, and then you'll have this gear here. This clip, all you gotta do with it is you got these tabs here on the end. All you gotta do is push down on them and then slide the gear off. And then your clip will just stay there inside the output shaft. And then whenever you get your new one in, you'll basically do the opposite, push in on the tabs, slide your gear on, and then that's all you gotta do. Alrighty, well, I've got my gear changed out in my transmission for the speedometer, and I was going to go ahead and put the drums back on. Got the drive shaft back in now, and I was going to put the car back on the ground. But just for the heck of it, I decided to go ahead and make sure that these rear brakes were put on correctly, and everything looks fine. I haven't even looked at the front yet. I feel like I'm going to have to look at them too now, because there's a little issue that I mentioned on that Camaro as well, and I didn't show it on camera, but there's an issue here. If you can see, I'll get the screwdriver in here, pry on the adjusting arm. If you can see in there, that white spring that goes between the two shoes on the bottom here, that spring is put on upside down. The reason why I say that is because you can see that the spring there is preventing the adjusting nut from spinning. So, you know, these are supposed to self-adjust. Whenever you back up and you hit the brake, this little arm here will push down on this, and if there's slack between the shoes and the drum, well, then that will twist that, and it will push the drums out farther, and it'll self-adjust. But if you have that spring right there on upside down, well, then this self-adjuster, it can't spin. And I have already pulled this out to make sure that it spins freely. And so you can't spin it because that spring is bounded up. So what you'll have to do Take yourself a screwdriver, pull on the axle tube here, pull on your shoe. You can get your self-adjuster out. Now you can pop that in, pull your spring out. What you want to do is turn it so that the spring end is on the top, not on the bottom. So it's out of the way of the self-adjuster. You'll pop it back in the right direction. Pull it that way. Put your screwdriver back in there, or pry bar. And line up your self-adjuster. Okay. Now that's all back together. You can see you can now turn the self-adjuster, and this will keep it self-adjusted over time. I did look on the other side. The other side is also on incorrectly. So I'll do it. I'll check the front ones. That's something to keep in mind if you guys are doing your own brakes, or if you're having to, a shop do your brakes. And if you're developing a low brake pedal over time, well, you might want to check into that. Make sure that spring's not on upside down. And sometimes it can be a matter of side to side. Maybe the right side spring was accidentally put on the left side. In this case, the spring's the same, left to right. And it's just a simple matter of it being on upside down.
Now that this car is back together enough and on the ground, let's go ahead and take it down the road real fast and see how accurate our speedometer is now.
Some of you guys might be in the same boat that I'm in with this car, where the sun visors just will not stay where they're supposed to stay. This one here won't stay up, and most of the time it won't stay forward either, but it seems to be working fine now. Anyways, this little section over here where it bolts in, it's actually got a big old crack in it. So that would be why it's not got a good tight grab onto it. So what I like to do whenever that happens, you go ahead and take that screw loose that holds this thing up. You can slide it out. You can see where it's cracked there. That's really not supposed to come off. That's supposed to be attached here, and then the screw comes out to loosen it, and then you can slide it out. But anyways, it's got this little plastic dude that just gets wore plumb out. And that's it right there. You can see there's really nothing left to it. So what I do is I get myself some hose. This was 5/16 fuel hose, and I've cut just a strip of it. I would use the whole thing, but the whole thing won't fit. So, and other hose sizes might work fine too. But anyways, I take it and I put it up at the top, and then put my bottom piece back on. Can be a little tricky. Get the little rubber piece where you want it, and then hold it up with the visor, and then see if you can get your screw started. Okay, there you go. All right, make sure it's where you want it, and then carefully tighten it up the rest of the way, and there you go. Stays up, stays forward, stays where you put it. Now that's good. If it loosens up a little bit more, you can just tighten that screw a little bit more, and they should be good to go. Is that the right way to fix it? No, not really. Will it work though? Yeah.
Well, you guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next one, where I'm going to do just a couple more quick repairs on this car, and after that, we'll do some fun stuff with it. I do know for sure I'll want to do something different with the exhaust, maybe just some mufflers, we'll see. But once that's done, the car's really as done as it's really going to get. And I'm planning on, after that, taking the car out, having some fun with it. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.